and then I will be able to show it to them. And
yes, thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
I turned it off briefly. Okay, Zach, is that really your name?
Hi, no, it's my son's name.
Okay.
My name is Felicia and I'm from Greece.
Oh, wow. In
Yes,
Greece or from Greece?
I am from Greece. I'm living in Israel now for a
Okay.
couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working as a preschool teacher here, although my major was in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I am also a mother of a very energetic 4-year-old boy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very happy to participate and see the presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome. Uh-oh, people are jumping around. David, I think you spoke already. You did. Steve and Rachel, you're on mute.
Hi, good evening.
Hi there. So we're just going around introducing ourselves while we're waiting for everybody to join in. So where are you from? Where do you?
Okay, I'm Steve. I'm from England, been in Israel 21 years. My wife is Rachel from the United States. She's been here 13 years. We have 3 kids, age 9, 6, and 3. My 6-year-old son Adam is here, and he is the focus of why I was interested in this seminar.
And I like money.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so one participant said they have nothing to say because they have ADHD. We have a few people without cameras. So we have Charmaine, Adrian, Marcel, and Chaya. So if anybody wants to come on and just say hello, where you're from, otherwise we'll get started. 10-9-8-7-6 5 4 3 2 1. Okay, so oh, I see everybody's muted almost. That's great. So if anybody has not muted themselves, I would really appreciate it if you would. So we don't have to worry about background noise during the presentation. Okay, sip of water. Okay, I'll share my screen. Go. Okay, so welcome to my webinar. So happy that you all joined in. I'll tell you a little about myself now that you've all introduced yourselves. I came to Israel almost 40 years ago after getting my BA in psychology at Rutgers University and my master's in social work from Columbia. I came with my husband. I came back. He's Israeli, but we came from New York together. We had been married a year and we raised 3 kids and we now have 3 grandchildren. I won't say how many have ADHD or not. They, I'll protect their privacy, but ADHD is familiar to us. A second. Okay. As you can see on the, you can see my screen, right? Go like this. Great. Okay, so I'm a certified family and couples therapist, and when I thought I had studied enough for the rest of my life, my husband can attest to the fact that I'm always finding something else interesting that I must study and must learn and must do. I saw this course by Dr. Ronnie Plotnick from Seminar Kibbutzim about certified parent advisors for ADHD kids, and I said, I have to do this. I have to do this. And I did it, and I found out that I thought I knew a lot about ADHD, but there's even more that I learned with her. And it turns out that many people that come to therapy, whether individual, couples, parents, children, so many of them have ADHD, and so many of them don't even know it or didn't know it for a long time. And I find that, as someone else said, pretty fascinating. So I made it kind of my mission to help people learn about it and cope with it and be happy in their families, even with ADHD and sometimes even DAP. I'm just wondering, are there any people here that don't speak any Hebrew? can go like this or like, okay. So I'll do my best to speak only English, although a lot of Hebrew gets thrown into my conversation day to day. Okay, so let's get started. So what is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? So it is a central nervous system disorder. It's something biological, it's something organic, neurological. It's not something the teacher makes up. I guess you all know that, but there's so much misinformation even today about it. And it's pretty much hereditary. If a kid comes to me with ADHD, I can figure out pretty quickly which parent has it. It's not about blaming, it's about understanding the family system. One second. Okay, so when we talk about attention disability, okay, talking about lack of attention, lack of discernment of information, high distractibility, which you see right now. Okay, sorry, guys. Hyperactivity is pretty much, we all know about that. That's what was mainly known about ADHD for many years. So if somebody wasn't hyperactive, they figured he didn't have ADHD. And later on, we'll speak a little about girls and boys. Okay, so some of you asked that I was going to put this till the end, but I'd like to just kind of get it out there right now. Some of you asked about the diagnosis, about medicine. So let's kind of like make seder, let's make order in what is and what isn't. So ADHD is a medical diagnosis. A psychiatrist, a neurologist, and some family physicians in Israel are certified because there are such long waiting lists to get to a neurologist or a psychiatrist. And sometimes stigma, people didn't really want to go to those doctors, or they thought it would be on their record in the army, it would ruin their future. There are all kinds of, scary things that people were thinking. Anyway, a doctor has to diagnose and treat it with medicine if that's the case. And there are the computerized tests, TOVA and MOXO, which are really more indications than diagnoses. Okay. So what it does is the MOXO is the more modern one, and it indicates if a person has difficulty with distractibility, with impulsivity. It's a computer test. And, but it's not a diagnosis. So I have people come to me and say, oh, we did the MOXO or the TOVA, and they said he doesn't have it. So that doesn't necessarily mean it. You should know that. And the psychological evaluation is also not a diagnosis, but it can definitely give an indication if a person has impulsivity issues, emotional issues, regulation issues, and can refer to the medical diagnosis. Several of you asked about medicine, and I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm not a physician. I won't give medical advice, but I will say, and this is what I say to my clients, if a doctor advised you to take a certain medicine, it's probably a good idea. You should, ask a lot of questions and raise your concerns and get as much information as you can about what this does, what it doesn't. People are worried about addictions. One time a dad asked me, his 6-year-old daughter, she was brilliant, but she was very phased out of kindergarten and then first grade when I met her, because she was so brilliant and she didn't like to follow the rules, and teachers kind of gave up on her because she wasn't really making trouble. She was just doing her thing. But imagine a 6-year-old who's brilliant. She used to make these contraptions of paper, and I said to her parents, this kid is going to be an architect. She's so amazing. But feeling phased out of school, nobody cares about engaging her. How can she grow up doing well? And her mom, who worked in a pharmaceutical, was willing to try medicine, and her dad was more apprehensive. And he said to me, "What's addiction?" I said, "Addiction is, for example, it's better not to talk to me in the morning before I've had my coffee. Don't ask my husband, because I'm not very nice. I really need caffeine. That's addiction." But these ADHD medicines are not addictive, and many parents do not give them, or adults don't take them on a daily basis, which proves that you don't get withdrawal, and you don't fall apart without the medicine if you choose not to take it on a daily basis. So it's not addictive. So my take on it is it can be very helpful if it's appropriate for that person, and I wouldn't rule it out. I also talk to parents and adults about their concerns and their fears about it, which are well taken. I'm not judging them, but I'm trying to kind of expand their horizons. What I say to people is, listen, I was born with weak eyes. I've had glasses since age 6. Can you imagine somebody saying to me, "Oh, Linda, just stop being so spoiled. Take the glasses off and read the book. You can do it if you really want to. Just try harder. What are you being so lazy about?" It sounds funny, but people for this disorder feel like medicine is an option. So I guess you get my drift on it. I'm not going to give medical advice about which and how much and all that stuff, but I think it's worth trying. I think I've said enough about medicine so far. So let's look more about what ADHD is and how it affects people with it. Talking about executive functions, which is the part of the brain that manages skills we need to complete in our daily lives. You can see in front of you, I don't have to read every word, but think about the people you know that probably or do have ADHD, and you can find them in each one of these bullet points. Organizing, prioritizing, they have trouble deciding what to do, when, what's most important. They might even have a plan, but then they get to work and they get this email or this phone call or this WhatsApp, and they get totally like off task. And the longer people are off task, the harder it is to get back on task. It's hard to transition from task to task, focus, especially if it's a boring task. That's really a big challenge for people with ADHD. They have trouble with emotional regulation. If something goes wrong, they could lose it. I don't mean to be judgmental. I'm trying to like paint a picture of what we see. Another really difficult one for people to understand is the working memory part. So imagine in your brain there's this like big sieve or like a colander that we drain spaghetti in, but it's got huge holes in it. So a lot of things that are supposed to stick with us just fall through the holes and people forget them. And then people are accused of being kind of DAFCA or like on purpose, not trying, all those names. And what really helps people remember things is being in a routine, or things that we do every day. Kids don't forget to brush their teeth. Maybe they don't want to, but they don't forget because they do it every day. So things that are brought into a routine are much easier to recall. And then they also have problems with monitoring and self-regulation, emotion, all the impulsivity pieces. So I said in my email, if you have questions, I'd be really happy to address them at the end. You can put them in the chat, or you can write them on a piece of paper, old-fashioned, and I'll definitely address them if I haven't so far. So these are behavioral characteristics that we see in people with compromised executive functioning. We see people that are chronically late. They don't know how to estimate how much time a task will take, how much time it will take to get ready to go out, how much time it will take to get to the train station, to park. It's like everything seems like it takes longer than it should, sort of. They're rushing, they can't find their keys, everything's a mess, the room is a mess. You know the drill. Difficulty in decision making, I think, is a really interesting one, which is less well known. But if you can think about like having 1,000 sticky notes and each one has a little piece of information on it, and you have to figure out how to put this together in a cohesive and coherent way and like make a decision kind of based on this information. It's a huge mess. You don't know what's most important, what's least important, what will drive you to a good decision. So what happens is people start asking advice, for example. They'll ask like 10 people, 20 people, what do you think I should do? And everybody has a different idea. And then you're even more confused. And then you go to the internet. And I don't know if, I guess everybody uses the internet, but if I go for a recipe on the internet and I just want this really specific, I make it really specific in my search, but then I get 1,000 ideas that I didn't really want. So then I don't feel like making it anymore, because who wants to sift through all those thousands of not only ideas for recipes, but ads that really I didn't want. So what I'm trying to say is the more you seek information, the more confused you get. And then what ends up happening is a lot of times kind of like circumstances drive the decision and it wasn't really made in a thoughtful way. And sometimes it's like a good outcome and sometimes less. Difficulty accounting for consequences. It's also kind of think about connecting the dots. But if you don't see all the dots, they won't get connected. So even though it seems to make sense, like if you don't do your homework, you'll get a lower grade. If you run the red light, you might have a really bad outcome. The least bad outcome is getting a ticket. The worst is, God forbid, an accident. It's kind of goes with the impulsiveness. It's just like doing things as it goes and not really figuring it out. Working memory, we mentioned, people say, I've told them 1,000 times. So I guess staying at 1,001 isn't going to be a great idea. Let's think of a new approach, because they don't necessarily learn from experience or learn from hearing it again and again. And it can be frustrating to live with somebody like that. I know, sure. Impulse control issues, flexible versus rigid thinking. Even if you have a plan and it's all set up, something goes wrong and it's like now everything goes wrong. Or parents have said, we had a great day, we went out, we had a nice outing with the family, we ate out, everything was great. And then on the way home, something happened. He had an argument with his brother, or I said something that upset him, and like the whole day was ruined. So this is kind of rigid thinking. It's like not being able to, readapt to new ideas and go with the flow. Okay, how about the difference between boys and girls? Yes, so I think lots of girls get lost, or not lost, but like missed because of this. Because we see the boys, they're out there, they're hyperactive, they're impulsive, they draw attention. I guess this is a good time to say they're not seeking attention. This is just the way they are, because they're not thinking through. Among girls, it's more of an internal, verbal, like girls can be like sitting in class and their mind wanders and all of a sudden they realize they haven't heard a word the teacher said, or they're busy chattering, they have difficulty waiting for their turn to speak, they might blurt something out, which is another type of impulsivity, or difficulty sorting details. I call it making a short story long. I know somebody that tells a story, no matter what she's talking about, has like thousands of irrelevant details, and you have to be so patient to listen, because like, where are you going with this? Or why are you telling me about every ingredient in the salad? So not everybody has the patience to be like with somebody like that. So sometimes there are social issues as well. And now let's think about the emotions. So even if people don't know they have ADHD, when all these things are going on, they feel like a deep feeling of shame. Something is wrong with me. maybe I know what, maybe I don't. They're constantly getting criticized. They're constantly being blamed. So there are a few ways to try and compensate for low self-esteem. Boys can be class clowns, or they can do really well in sports, which is an excellent way to compensate, because physical activity is a good thing for ADHD because it gets the dopamine going in the brain, which is one of the things the medicine does. And it's a perfect way to really cope with or live with ADHD. It's also a way to feel good self-esteem. Girls, sometimes it's attempt to excel in school. They can be very, very sociable, maybe at the expense of other things. I have a girl, 16 years old, in therapy now. Although her parents don't think she has ADHD, I suspect she does, her brother does. She spends all her waking hours studying. If she gets less than a 90, she's like, she loses it. She doesn't know why the teachers won't give her a second, more bet they call it a second chance at taking a test. It's very worrisome. She forgets to eat. She doesn't sleep well. And so that's why she says, like, now you're speaking to the rational part of me, and she gets it. She says, I know this is wrong. I know it doesn't like make sense, and I know it's a problem, but when I'm in there, I can't stop. It's like an addiction. She can't stop. She can't stop to eat. She can't stop to like take a break for anything. So yeah, I'm trying to help her. People with ADHD are known to be like helpers. They like to help out with, other friends, and sometimes at their own expense. They have difficulty saying no. Maybe it's another way to compensate for feeling like low self-esteem. At least I'm a good friend. I can help people. So we have to be careful about that. And also extreme sensitivity. Boys looks like an anger outburst, and in girls it's sadness and withdrawal. And as I'm writing this and saying this, I know it sounds very stereotypical, but it is typical. Maybe it has to do with hormones, I'm not sure, but this is like the typical picture we see. Another thing I didn't write down is they have a very, very sharp sense of like justice. If somebody is wronged, let's say in their class, they'll get in a fight for that person, or they'll fight with the teacher for that person. It's also kind of a rigid thinking. They can't stand something like seeming unfair, whether it's for themselves or for others. And it can get them in trouble. It's like, it's a nice characteristic, but it's like they don't know when to stop. Okay, so here, take a look at this, see if you can relate to these kind of sayings. So I wrote on this one, ADHD is for life. It looks different. People learn to cope with it. People learn to use their strengths, hopefully. I had a 30-plus-year-old client. Is your idea of cooking, making cereal, or heating up frozen meals? And he said he was so bad at planning, not, even if he had bought the chicken and put it in the freezer, he wouldn't think the day before to take it out and a couple hours before to make it and, make it into a meal. And he'd get so like famished that he would just eat like junk food and then feel badly that he's not taking care of himself, and sometimes not taking care of his kids. Another story about medicine, speaking of him, is he came to me right in the beginning of the pandemic. Lots of things were going on. He was feeling like kind of panicked because of all that was going on with his work and his kids and his divorce and his life, and he wasn't getting up and he wasn't doing things like he should. And after hearing his story, I said, I don't usually ask people this on the first intake session, but any chance you have ADHD? And he said, why are you asking? I said, well, because of all the shifts and changes you've made in your life with work and with school and with your marriage and with your divorce and with everything you're telling me. And he said, my wife said that. And then I finished his sentence. I said, but she was saying it critically, right? And he said, yeah. And my son also has issues, so it makes sense. Anyway, He went to get assessed, he took medicine, and he said, oh my God, I never knew that I could be productive for hours and do my job and feel good about it. Like, where have I been? And so it's in a way like it's a breakthrough. And in another way, it's like it's heartbreaking. Why did he have to go through all that? Like, where somebody else wrote a question like, my son was diagnosed at 18, where was everybody? But sometimes people are really good at compensating because they're smart, because they have support systems. And sometimes it takes a while to really push through as something that is a big challenge. So, you know, it is what it is. It's good to find out, better late than never. Couple other sentences people are typical. I don't need to write this down. I'll remember it. Probably not. Yeah, you can look at things and find yourselves or your family members or your friends. You tell yourself this is the semester you'll get your life together. So what I say to people is awareness is a great first step. Motivation is a great second step, but it's not enough. You need tools, you need routines, you need something kind of a system. It's not enough to want to. It's great. It's better than denial, but it's not enough. And then you end up, disappointing yourself and your surroundings because you don't get it together just like that. How about you're really bright if you only applied yourself? This is something that people hear over and over again. And it's one of the things that really sabotages self-esteem. So I'm wondering if I should open up for questions up until this point, because I'm about to start talking about what I do in therapy. If anybody has a question about the definitions or anything I've set up till now. I'll take a little break from my speeches. Otherwise, I will go on.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I'm actually, I came online this evening because it was interesting with regard to my 6-year-old son, but some of the things that you've been pointing out here, I think define and describe me and not my children.
Surprise, surprise. And what do you think about that?
Yeah.
If I may ask.
So, I'm sorry, could you just repeat what you said?
I said, would you like to say what you think about that while you're
Yeah, certainly with regard to attention span and easy distraction and inability for focusing and basically I work for myself and I have a whole bunch of things set in place to keep myself going, but sometimes I find myself self-sabotaging, and I see that in my kids as well, where we have good structures in place, but then something that comes which is out of the ordinary will throw everything completely out of whack. So it was interesting from the slides that you had in your presentation just now to see that and see how it applies to the kids, but also to myself.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Ami had a question as well. Ami had his hand up.
Yes. So my question is that sometimes the person will, and I'm talking about myself and also my son, like sometimes with the Ritalin, we'll see a difference. And exactly like you described, and by the way, I joined late, so it's possible you answered this question already. How come sometimes without the medication, the person seems to be able to be focused or manage to do everything as though they don't have ADD or ADHD?
Okay, so it could be a couple things. It could be several things. I don't know if I don't think I mentioned yet that if the task is something that is not so challenging and or very interesting, then it's easier to stay focused. Steve, can you mute yourself, please? That's one thing. And we also, if kids have eaten well and slept well and are feeling well, then they can handle more stress and more frustration. So it has to do with lots of factors. Maybe they're less distracted in a certain setting. It's variable. Depends on stimuli that's going on in their life and in their setting, I think. Maybe
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Take maybe one more question and then we'll go on, if there is one. Or not. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little about what I do in my practice. One of the things is parent counseling and advice. So the way I start out with parent counseling and / child therapy is I have the parents always come to me before I meet the child, all the way up to age 18. I want to ask them questions about the child's development. I want to ask them what is concerning them right now, and I want to ask what is the child's motivation for therapy. Psychoeducation means what I'm doing with you now, discussing and describing what ADHD is, how it affects people, how it's nobody's fault. This is the package you got in your birth, and we're going to work with it. Kind of playing down the blame game. And then prioritizing. So there can be lots of things going on that we really want to fix, but what's the most distressing? What's the most disrupting in their life? And as I said, I studied with Dr. Oni Plotnik. She wrote this really great book, which has not a great translation, Growing Up Differently. But it's got good information. So the way she describes working with children is the 5 steps. Protective presence means showing kids that we're there to support them, not to nag them, not to correct them, not to criticize them, but just kind of support them, because we know that certain areas are difficult for them because of the way their brain works, and they need extra help getting certain tasks or getting certain routines learned. Advanced preparation is super helpful, even for adults, but she was talking about kids. What's going to happen, describing, like if we're going to do something new or get into a new situation, what's it going to look like? What's it going to be? Why are we doing it? As much information as possible, so it's not like a surprise. Mediation and verbalization means when people don't have the words, then we call it acting out, but acting out is kind of, it's kind of also blaming, but it just means they don't have the words, so they use their body. So if we can learn how to reflect feelings and explain to kids like what is going on with them, or suggest what might be going on, they learn those words. And when they hear us saying it, they get validation for what's going on that they didn't really know how to figure out themselves. For example, my grandson was about maybe 3.5, 4, and he was like losing it, and he was yelling and screaming, and I said, Leo, are you angry? And he, all of a sudden it was like, I was amazed. It works. He just stopped everything and he goes, yeah. It was like a change of phase, like, is that the same kid? I said, oh, okay, can you tell me why? And he tried to, and so if we can help them with those words and say, I see you're feeling, is that right? Like, just don't tell them, ask them, and help them with the words so that they can learn those words. And maybe kids just know angry, sad, and happy, but we need to like make it a little more rich as they grow up. And if they can verbalize and conceptualize those feelings, then they'll be able to self-regulate as they go. So monitoring means kind of keeping up with them and seeing if they need help, and then feedback and correction again in a kind of coaching, helpful way, not correction as like criticism. keeping in mind that what they're having trouble doing is they're having trouble doing, they're not trying to test us and make us have a hard life. I don't think any kid really wants to give us a hard time because they don't like us or they think that's the best way to be. I don't believe that. And the other thing she talks about is the parental voice, meaning parents have a fantasy, like when they have kids, what their kids will be like and look like and act like and things like that. But nobody really fantasizes about, oh, my kid's going to be hyperactive, or my kid is going to really have trouble sitting in class and learning, or anything else that's challenging in a child's life. But then it happens, and some it's like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this. Nobody told me about this, or I was hoping that my kid would have it easier than I did, or so we have to help them through that kind of acceptance of, yeah, this is the situation, and we can make it better, and we can work with it. It's not what you expected. It's maybe you need extra help as your child does, but we can make it work. Okay. So in individual therapy, again, in psychoeducation, working around the emotional implications of low self-esteem and feeling like they're worthless or useless and things like that. People really get really bad images of themselves. And then we work on goal setting. It could be the most disruptive area. It could be the easiest, like what we'll be able to, what can we solve easily first? Maybe a small problem. And then if they feel like, oh, that worked, then we can move on. But choosing something and working with it till we go to the next area. Okay, so let's talk a little about ADHD couples. This is very complex, but I'm sure it's very familiar to many of you. So what happens with people with ADHD is like they need like thrills, excitement, and that also goes to the dopamine in the brain that it's kind of a self-medication. It could have also involved risk-taking in adolescence. So if people aren't treated medically who need it, they do things, it's just kind of their body guides them to need it, to try and do this, and because they feel they need it. So a new relationship can be super exciting, even for people without ADHD, but with, it's like the whole thrill of it. And then people get into a relationship over time and it's like, oh, this is routine, this is boring, this is life. Like, and it becomes very frustrating for both sides because it's like, you weren't like that in the beginning, or, what happened? People could feel rejected and even betrayed. It's like a different person, or, oh, you got married and then you just stopped being nice, or things like that. Lots of accusations. And then when all these behaviors that we talked about before come into a relationship, the person who doesn't have ADHD and doesn't get it could feel you're so inconsiderate, you don't keep promises, you forget things, like what kind of a partner are you? The messiness, impulsiveness, all these things. It's very demoralizing, because maybe the person with ADHD, like maybe they're a good person, but they have issues, which doesn't mean that it's okay to leave those issues, but we need to like call it by name. So again, knowledge is power. If we can reframe the definition in the context of the ADHD, then it's like, it's not like against you, it's nobody's fault. Let's like leave blame out of it, because we're adding insult to injury by blaming and using character defamations. It's just not, it's not helpful. And again, prioritizing. So you have lots of complaints. What's the one thing you want to start with that's either most important or most doable? What's realistic? You're not going to change the person, but you can, slowly change certain behaviors. And the person who's being asked to change has to feel on board that this is something they can do and they want to do and they'd like to do. Maybe they also have requests of the other side without the ADHD. It's a negotiation. and division of labor. People should build on strengths with adults and with kids. You know, people should have chores, but people have chores that they can do, that they won't be like putting off forever, because some people hate dishes, some people hate laundry, some people like dishes. You know, people should work with what's doable. And once you commit to something, it's your responsibility. You can't tell the other person, oh, I'm forgetful, so remind me. No, if you take it on, figure out how to remind yourself. Take responsibility. And last but not least, keep kids out of your conflict. So it can be very tempting to commiserate with your kids or to name call in front of your kids and take sides. It's very damaging. It's the worst thing people can do for their kids, is like get them against one of the parents in a marriage and in a divorce. So I'll leave that there. I felt like, you know, once I made this PowerPoint, I couldn't ignore the coronavirus. In the States, they call it COVID, here they call it corona. So we're looking at like the worst thing that could happen to ADHD people: spending more time in close quarters, loss of income, loss of routine, all the things people thrive on are kind of gone or minimized. And uncertainty is very difficult. So we just have to acknowledge that we're in unusual times and try and see what we can do in all this whole huge area of what we can't control. What can we control? So what we can control, for example, is self-care. We have to take care of ourselves, eating well, sleeping well, exercising, doing something for yourself that you enjoy, even if it's in the house, if it's, I don't know, crocheting or meditating, or a few minutes a day that's for you. And you'll feel like you're, you know, charging your batteries again. And you'll be more, you know, able to put yourself out there for the rest of your family. Choose your battles. I mean, you're not going to fix the world. So what's your most important battle? And why is it important? Think about it. When you're choosing a battle, try and think about what makes it a battle. Does it need to be a battle? Save words. People cannot hear long, drawn out lectures, discussions. One simple step at a time. That's what they can get. I remember once I was with my son, and we asked somebody for directions, and they gave the longest, like most complicated directions. And after the first one, I didn't remember anything. And he remembered everything. I said, how did you remember all that? How did you do that? Like, I couldn't believe it. I was so like amazed. Some people have good auditory memory, and some people have good visual memory. If I write something down, or if I see it on a map, or if I see a step-by-step directions like we used to do before the Waze, even if I forgot the paper at home, I would remember because I'm a visual. So that's also a tip, like learn what your strong point is and what kind of memory you're good at. Some people have good, what's it called? Muscle memory. So get to know what your strengths are and what your kids' strengths are, and go for that. And then coping with feelings of frustration, disappointment, and anger, they'll be there. But I want to teach you something called positive self-talk. So try and think about a trigger that you've had in your life recently, and try and remember what you said to yourself about that trigger. Like, what kind of statements did you make? If anybody wants to like volunteer to speak up, I'd be happy. Did you say he's doing that to make me mad, or something like that? Anybody wants to volunteer, you can unmute yourself. Or not, just think about it. And then that statement, that negative self-talk, feeds into a negative emotion, these frustrations and angers. And then we might lash out, or we might tune out. But if we could switch those statements into a positive or neutral self-talk, like, he didn't mean to, it's hard for him, he needs help, then we're going to feel more compassionate and less angry, and then we'll be able to be there to help, and help be with them in that difficulty. So that's something you can control in yourself. Think about your self-talk. Think about what you're saying to yourself when you're getting angry, and kind of look at it and see if you can change that statement you're making to yourself. Happy family. So these are some things that are good. I mean, we did say many times that people with ADHD are messy and not tidy, but make basic rules in your house that people can do. Maybe the kids' room that is a mess will be off limits to the parents, unless it's, I say to parents, unless it's something like hygiene. Are they leaving food on the floor? If not, okay, not so bad. Are they leaving dirty clothes on the floor? Will they have no clothes left and then they'll realize they have to put them in the hamper? Choose your battles again. Maybe just have the living room like the tidy place and the rest can be let go or let loose. Schedule, simple rules, supportive environment, quality time. You won't believe how many kids have said in this intake with the parents, I really wish you would play with me. Like, we think of kids as being wanting to be on their screens all day. Guess what? They really want to play with it. One kid said to his dad, the parents came to me and the dad said, the kid was 9. He said, it's either he's going to change or he's going to boarding school. I'm like, what? I mean, he was a really good, smart kid with issues. And the kid said, I wish you would just play with me. I really love when we play basketball, but you're never around and you never play with me. And when you are around, you're just mad at me and criticizing me. Wow. I was really happy he had the guts to say that. Or kids say to their parents, you're always on the phone. And that's what we say to the kids. But guess what? They see us on the phone as well. We're no better sometimes. So they really do want the quality time with us. And we need to make that for them. We need to catch them doing something good, helping their siblings or helping us or helping, doing something positive. So, I feel like I've been kind of down and out about ADHD, but there's lots of positive traits. They tend to be very social with people. They like to have a good time. They often can multitask. They can be very creative. So find the positive traits and make the most. If it's for your kids, if it's finding the right extracurricular like sports or dancing or art or music, those things are great for kids. They build their self-esteem. They give them like another area to excel in that school maybe isn't so successful. And it also recharges their brain and all those neurons that need charging. We need to encourage them. If it's going to the scouts and all that stuff, like, let them go for it and they'll be good. So thank you for listening, and let's open up again for questions. I see there's people have written in the chat, but I haven't checked. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so I can check the chat. All right, chat has been going strong. All right, let's see. Okay. Oh, lots of people don't speak Hebrew. I was pretty good in English, right? Is there a difference between ADHD and ADD? So, great question. In the past, they used to differentiate. The ADD was like the inattentive type, but now they say pretty much ADHD is the only one diagnosis, because, like I said about girls, for example, A lot of times the hyperactivity is internal, but it's still hyperactivity, just is expressed in a different way. So we don't use ADD anymore. Okay. My son was diagnosed at about 3 years of ADHD. He's going to be 18 in February. Now he tested positive. Okay, somebody asked really a super medical question, and I don't know if I should answer it or qualified to answer it. It's a great question for a doctor. Yeah, my young adult son with ADD gets accused of being lazy. Yeah, it's really, that's right. They get accused of being lazy because people don't understand that they actually have a difficulty that they need help with, and it looks lazy, and it looks lazy, but it's not necessarily lazy, and we should really, I feel like it's kind of the easy way out to call somebody lazy or testing limits or acting out. It's like once we put that label on, we lose motivation for helping them. But somebody who's not functioning, I don't really believe that that's their best self. Like, I think people would prefer to function if they had the tools to function, and would prefer to be like cooperative and a good family member if they had the tools for self-regulation and for learning routines and learning behaviors. It's just harder for them. Is it common for someone to tell lies even to themselves and fantasize that they're exceeding life? Absolutely. Sometimes the truth is very difficult, So some people, like I said, say, oh, I'm worthless. Nothing works for me. I'm never gonna amount to anything, things like that. So maybe another coping mechanism is to say, like, I'm the best. I'm succeeding. Nothing's wrong with me. Isn't that a better fantasy? I mean, it's not helpful to that person, but we can understand why they adopt that. So I guess the next question is, what should we do about it? But one of the things I ask people when they come to therapy, or especially when they come to therapy for their kids, is how is it impacting their life? I have a 13-year-old who's been to me just a few times, a new client. And how it's impacting his life is he's a really good soccer player, but he was penalized out of practices in a game because he, I think he was just aggressive. I think only verbally. I don't think he got into a physical fight, but that was unacceptable. So that's his motivation. He doesn't want to be like penalized in soccer. And he explained what impulsive means and how it works. And so if he can get over or treat or improve his impulsivity, that's his motivation. So everybody's got something that like could be a motivation for them. Like what would you like to be better in your life? That's where we'll work. Can ADHD go hand in hand with other neurological disorders? OCD, absolutely. Epilepsy, I'm not sure if it's connected. It's definitely could be connected with anxiety, with depression. Sometimes people miss the ADHD aspect of it and only diagnose the anxiety or depression, which is a shame because, if you could diagnose the whole picture, then you can give a better treatment. Can you explain a little about emotional dysregulation? So ADHD is all about regulation and difficulty in regulation. It's just like impulsivity can be motor, it can also be emotional. It's like an inability to monitor and slow down your reactions, make choices. I tell people I'm allergic to a few words. One of them is he chose to blah, blah, blah. I didn't choose, it just came out. Like if he could choose, he'd be in a great place because I'm saying he, but it could be she. Their thinking brain isn't working. We talked about executive function. Their thinking brain is sleeping or is off kilter. So all the regulation aspects of our lives are not working well. and that includes emotional. So believe it or not, the medicines also help with emotional regulation because it makes the brain just work like in a better rhythm, and it helps us regulate everything. Treat it. So the best is to get that medicine people need. Again, it's not from me. And also to work with in therapy, if you can get the medicine, that's like a good basis, a biological basis to start working on thinking through and learning new behavior patterns. Should siblings told that their brother or sister can't help trying to get their attention, love, should we ask them to be more patient? Can't help trying to get their attention, love. Sure, I think we should ask them to be more patient. And I heard somebody say something that I like, kids aren't seeking attention, they're seeking connection. I love it. Because in seeking connection, sometimes they seek connection in not really good ways. So we need to be proactive in teaching them how to get good attention and how to play nicely. And when I ask kids, what does it mean to be like good, a good boy or a good girl? Like there's a whole long list of what not to, but they don't really know what the list is to. What's the other side of it? Not to yell, not to scream, not to curse, not to what? Yes, they're not really sure about that. So we need to be proactive about teaching them positive social skills. Thanks so much. It's up to go. What's Kupat diagnosis and treatment? Okay, so the diagnosis and treatment in Kupat Cholim is very accessible and free pretty much. If you go for private, most of the kupot I think will subsidize some of the fees. Each kupot is a little different. And in terms of my kind of therapy, I don't think they have like a specific ADHD therapist. They have emotional therapists kind of, but I don't know if they're specialists in ADHD. You'd have to really do your homework on that one. If a young adult in their 20s is in denial, how can they be helped? Well, you can't really put it in their face, but again, see what part of their life they're unhappy with and take it from there. In a supportive and loving way. So people are leaving. I'm happy to stay and answer any more questions if you want to open up your mics. Anything I haven't covered? So before any more people leave, I'll just say thank you for joining, and I hope it was helpful. And I hope you got some information that you were seeking. I'll put my screen up again so you can write down or save my email. How can I get the recording? I'll talk to Suzanne about it, and we'll see how we'll get it out there. So here is my email, here's my website, here's my phone number. If anybody wants to call me, I'd be happy to give you a free, consultation, and we'll see if you'd like anything more. Maybe you have questions that you didn't want to raise in public. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. So Esther, how
Yeah.
are you doing?
Well, I certainly checked off a whole bunch of things.
Okay. Did it meet your expectations?
It certainly did. It certainly did. Yes,
I'm glad.
There were a lot of good hints that I loved.
Okay, good.
Especially the last part where you said they all know what's not to be a good person, but they don't know they can't express what is. I think that's crucial.
Yeah.
I can't wait to ask my daughter.
Okay. Okay.
But thank you very much. It was very helpful. Yes.
My pleasure.
I look forward to the recording because I do want to listen to it with them.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you one more tip and
Yeah.
tell them that you heard this fascinating presentation and you were thinking about them the whole time and you wish they'd be there and not like, oh, I'm going to prove to you, blah, blah, blah. Like, just be careful not to put them on the defensive about it. Like say, you know,
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you're going to feel about what I heard and I'd love to have a conversation, you know, you and them.
Yeah.
So, good luck with
And
it.
and of course, there's the third generation that there's my grandkids who
course.
are definitely in need of help. My daughter refuses to do anything medical and talk about denial. And yeah, I won't put it in their face.
Okay. Where you're also up north, you said? Where'd you say you're from?
I'm in Tel Aviv.
Oh, Tel Aviv. I don't think you said so. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll
Where
have
are
another
you?
conversation. I'd be happy to.
Where are you?
I'm in Rehovot.
Ah, nachon. Yeah, one of my daughters works in Rehovot in Kaplan,
At where?
in a Kaplan Hospital.
Oh, I used to work there a little bit. Nice. Okay.
All right, thanks
Thank
again. I'm
you.
going to sign off.
Okay, thanks. Anya, Maureen, Suzanne. The last two of the Mohicans. Did it meet your expectations? Okay, let's stop the share. Okay. So, thank you so much.
That was very interesting, Linda.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I learned a lot, and I'm very grateful that you took the time to share your expertise with all these fine people.
I should have said up front, thank you for setting this up and facilitating it. I didn't mention that, but thank you. The final people will hear it, that I thank you. It was your idea and I appreciate it. I'm glad that people got something out of it.
Great, great.
And nice to meet you. We've been emailing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, nice to see you.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, have a good evening.
Okay, Ruth, the grandmother, you good? Okay, take care, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Mr. Avitan, what say you? Tap mute.
את רוצה להיפגש למטה או לדבר ככה?
סתם, ניפגש למטה.
קודם כל הרצאה שמתחילים, חייבים להתחיל עם כללים. חייב להיות זמן, כי את ראית, במיוחד אנשים כאלו שמתעייפים, כי יש להם ADHD. אז לכן היה צריך מלכתחילה להגביל את ההרצאה ולעמוד על זה, ולא לעשות מינגלינג ולא טוקינג ולא. זה מאוד רציני. 45 דקות, רבע שעה, שאלות ותשובות היה מצוין.
לא, אני באמצע הרגשתי שאני מדברת עם עצמי ואולי כדי כאילו to engage them a little bit, כאילו לעשות הפסקת שאלות, אני חושבת שזה היה טוב. לא?
כן, לא, אני גם הייתי גם יכול לעשות, למשל בקטגוריות, למשל לגמור קטגוריה, לענות שאלות בקטגוריה.
זה מה שעשיתי,
ובסוף שאלות כלליות.
אבל אחרי שדיברתי על החלק התיאורטי, חשפתי לשאלות.
לא, השאלות ותשובות היה טוב מאוד, ראיתי, זה אנשים. ואני לדעתי, פעם בשבועיים צריכים להעלות את זה, מי שיבוא יבוא, אבל זה יתפוס.
שאלת מה אני רוצה להיפגש למטה.
מה?
שאלת אם אני רוצה להיפגש למטה.
רציתי להכין.
להכין מה?
להכין לך כוס תה.
יאללה, אני באה.
ביי.